Hey everyone, welcome to the Sneaker History Podcast, where we dive into the people, stories, and iconic moments that have helped make sneakers a global phenomenon. If you've ever told someone that you like their kicks, then you're in the right place. Before we lace up this episode, here's a little teaser for you. Stick around to the end of each episode for the last shot question. It's a chance to test your sneaker knowledge and engage with our community. I've also recently started a newsletter to share my knowledge from nearly 2 decades of experience working in the footwear industry. You can find the link to that below or go to sneakerhistory.com/newsletter for a weekly deep dive into the biggest topics in the sneaker business. All right, now that the business is taken care of, grab your favorite pair of kicks and let's get started with the episode. What up, what up? Welcome to Sneaker History Podcast. My name is Nick Ingvall with my guy Mike Guillory tonight. Talk about some kicks, talk about what we've been rocking, what we've been copping, and some big news in the running space, I guess, in the celebrity endorsement world. So what's good, man? How you been?
Man, I'm good. I started on this weird endeavor I wanted to bring up to you and when we started, because I got a whole new appreciation for my collection. I was like, you know what? Let me take an account for what the heck's in this space. So I've gone through, I'm not done yet, but I've gone through and started literally just like on a spreadsheet, like inventorying what I have. Literally, I wish I wouldn't started this project because I'm like halfway done. I'm like, this is too much. This is, and I think this speaks to, I need to get rid of some of this stuff. It is ridiculous what is in this office right now. And I'm like, geez.
I can relate, man. I got storage. I got stuff obviously in this room, but got other stuff in the other closet, got other stuff in the bedroom. Like it's just overwhelming, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of one of those things. I think, I guess this is like a great question for the audience too. Like, at what point do you say enough is enough and you downsize, right? Because it's hard to let go of a lot of shoes. It's not like we really stop buying them. Sometimes we'll donate them. You know, like I kind of started a rule a handful of years back where for every pair that I'm sent for free, because I've been lucky enough to have that happen in my career, I donate a different pair.
Yeah.
You know, so
awesome.
It keeps it sort of balanced, but then I still buy tons of shoes. So, and honestly, like I probably need to get rid of many pairs, but we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, man, I don't know speaking of what have you been rocking? What are you copping?
I'm rocking. I had the Year to Dragon. Man, I'm trying to get a better picture. I swear this light's killing me here. The Year to Dragon 1906 U, the utility version of a shoe. They had 2 of them. Had the white pair here, had the pink pair, and I wore this one most recently. Man, I'm trying to get a better picture, but it is glaring like nobody's business. But yeah, that's what I'm rocking. You guys can look up the picture. In copping right now, this one is not necessarily new. Neither one of these are new because there's 2 of them on my radar. I want to get that. Actually, prices have come down on them like dramatically. First one being the Nike SB Dunk Low J-Pack Chicago. Like the price has been like cut into like thirds how cheap it is right now.
Nice.
So I'm looking at that one, but probably first, if you have seen it, I think you would like it. Nick, is designed by Japan Vomero 5.
Have I seen that?
If you haven't seen it, you have to check it out. It is, in my opinion, I don't think this is a hot take either. I think it's the best design Vomero that is out right now, that is released ever.
Oh, it's got the blue.
Yeah, it has like the oversized swoosh on it and like the cream colors and blue.
Yeah, that's a good looking shoe, man.
Yeah.
I have not bought a pair of Vomeros.
You would love them. I think you would love them.
I'm into them, but I just have held out. And every time it comes down to it, I'm like, do I really need this? I'll wait. And then I end up buying I've picked up so many pairs of random Sauconys and New Balance lately in that same vibe kind of.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's a good looking shoe. There's another one that's got like an orange mid panel that I really like that is definitely on my to cop list, I guess I should call it. But yeah, man. Rocking for me, these are going to be dirty as hell, but this is the New Balance 997. What is this? The LBK is basically like a light gray, black, pink kind of vibe. 997, one of my favorites. Definitely love those shoes. And actually, my pickup this week is something that I picked up a little ways back, but I never talked about them. Clark's did these. I forget the model, but it's basically like a Wallaby with like the Vibram outsole.
That's cool. I like that.
Actually, yeah. So they were on clearance. There you can see the Vibram. They were on clearance, so I picked up both like the black and the like kind of khaki colors. So these are obviously not stuff that I would normally wear. My friend Alexander's hit me up and was like, "Yo, you got to check these out," because he grabbed a couple of pair. But they were like, I think we paid. I want to say I paid about $70 a pair for them, and I think retail is up closer to $200. So it was kind of like, all right, I'm going to do this. And they sold out. I think I got the last 2 size 13s that were on the site. So I don't know if you can find them elsewhere, but they're super nice material. They remind me of like the Visvim, that was super popular back in the day, which is way crazy price nowadays. So I'm excited for them. I haven't worn a pair like this. I'm not a big Wallaby fan, but I like the idea of having like more of a normal cushion. The only reason I like the Wallaby is because I'm old and my feet always hurt. So I always want to wear insoles and cushioning and that modern day comfort. But anyway,
I like those a lot. I hadn't seen those. Raise it up. I want to see the midsole again. Let me see. Those look good, man. I like those a lot. Like I mean, that's something I would wear all the time.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of, there was an Adidas shoe. Oh man, I can't think of the name of it. There was an Adidas shoe that was kind of like this, that they basically took the Fortitude. Yeah, it was like, I think it was called the Fortitude. It was kind of like a modern midsole tooling and then like a more mock style upper.
Yeah.
Or some variation of that. The Fortitude had a normal upper, but there was a couple others back then in that era in like 2008, 9 or so, where especially because Clark's has had their ups and downs, but
yeah,
I thought these were pretty dope, and for the price, I wanted to just check them out. So,
heck yeah, man.
Yeah, man. All right, so big news of the day, probably of the week, probably of the month, probably of I don't know. This is honestly probably one of the bigger stories I think for this year so far.
Yeah.
And that is that Zendaya has signed a deal with On. And unfortunately, Robbie couldn't be with us today. Obviously, he's a big fan of the brand. But I wanted to just talk about it a little bit because I think it's awesome, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I know that they also had a deal with FKA Twigs. I know they obviously have their deal with Federer. Mm-hmm. They've been doing a lot in the space, but I think that there's like a huge opportunity now that On has a big market, not big, like let's say big is a good way to put it, a big market share, right? Like, but typically the people that you see wearing On are hardcore runners or maybe on the older side.
Yeah.
And since we just did an episode about, kind of the old men yelling at the sneaker clouds, I figured this is a good kind of counterpoint to that.
Yeah.
Is that Zendaya is obviously somebody who is popular enough to cross all sorts of generational gaps for any brand she partners with. And I think the coolest thing that I saw about this deal, other than, her having, she's going to have input on the designs, she's going to have input on the marketing, it's going to be really an interesting partnership. And I think that, that's the beauty in all these newer partnerships that are happening, is that the relationships have evolved so much from, hey, this is the athlete does the thing, and we put our shoes on the athlete.
Yeah.
And I'm dumbing it down for the sake of storytelling, but that is truly like the core of what a lot of these partnerships were. You think like, yes, for every LeBron that goes in and sits down with Leo Chang or whomever, or Jason Petrie or whoever is designing the shoe, LeBron, KD, all these guys always use Nike as a reference because they're kind of the GOAT in this space, I guess. But also the people that I'm most critical of because I love them so much. I think that the interesting thing about these partnerships now is that you take away all those determine things that you think about as sneakerheads. We think about LeBron, we think about KD, we think about Steph Curry, whomever, with their signature line.
Yeah.
We don't think about the countless people that do still have that boring, Nike's going to send me a pair of, I don't know, GT cut, whatever basketball shoes. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? If you're a player that's not like a superstar or like a Hall of Famer, get your deal and get your free shoes and make a little bit of money if you make the playoffs, if you're playing in the, finals. There's a reason for all those people. But for every one LeBron that has one of those like really in-depth relationships with a brand, there's probably 50 or 100 people that have a deal in the same sport, but don't have any input or very little input on what the product is.
Like a DeMar DeRozan, basically. Like, if you want to compare, it's like, hey, I am with the brand, I play the same sport, but I get color choices as opposed to entire model choices.
Yeah, exactly. And he probably has put input on a ton of colors and maybe even has pushed a little bit to make some of the stuff that we've seen from the Kobe line, since he's been such a kind of carrier of that torch.
Yeah.
But I think something like this, where you have somebody like a Zendaya, or, the other name that just popped into my head is on the New Balance side is like Teddy Santis, right? It's like, I know that people are critical of the creative director title when it comes to these partnerships, but when you are a creative person and you give creative direction, what the fuck else are you supposed to call it? I mean, I don't think that I think we all understand that a creative director is not like the creative director guiding an entire big, massive company at this point. And I'm actually really, I think, optimistic about this partnership, because Zendaya has a very kind of traditional style. She's very like kind of skaterish in a lot of ways, if from my generation, right?
Yeah.
But she's also like just spot on kind of like low key style in the modern era or like the more recent era of what I would say fashion is. And that to me is really interesting, because On is known by enough people, Zendaya is known by enough people, and there's like this giant gap between, like, I think the sneakerhead world consistently, like there are a handful of shoes that have crossed over, collabs, that kind of thing. A lot of people I see that are wearing all whites or the all blacks and like super low key On, but like obviously fashion forward people. Now I think there's an opportunity for this to kind of fill in that gap in a way that like maybe kind of like Jaden Smith has done at New Balance, with all the like bringing in a new model, a new style that's not really traditional New Balance, then like using the grays and the New Balance story, but then going crazy with the colors and also having that other side of like, festival vibes kind of in a shoe, in a sense. But I'm rambling, and I appreciate you putting up with that, Mike. But what do you think about this whole thing?
No, I think it's a great signing, and I think you really said it best. I feel like that she can bridge the gap between two different types of people, because she's still young enough to, clearly she has a lot of younger fans who are going to follow what she does, what she wears. Not only that, those, I guess three types of people follow her. Younger fans, of course. You're going to have the On consumer, which, like you said, it's not traditionally a sneakerhead shoe. Not yet. I feel like it's becoming more of that. I mean, you look at, I feel like Robbie and I have probably more of our daily wears now than half the Jordans we have in our closet at this point. It's something easy to put on. It's very, I like the technical aspect of it. It gives you that, what was that? What was it, Gorp core, that people like, the utility? It kind of gives you with that really futuristic looking sole, with the way they've done things, kind of get that look. But is people you see more, I don't know what you would call them. It's just the normal person. It's a normal person's shoe, in the sense of you walk into Smoothie King, you could probably count more people with Ons on than with Jordans, So you got
good
that
old raisins and peanuts, man. Gorp core.
Gorp core. But you have that group of like that. I want technical stuff, or I want, that's just, hey, I like that easy running shoe. I want to look cool, but not go too far. You have that group. But then also had a high fashion because she's known for like, will it be like premieres or like Met Gala? She really takes the fashion risk. And that pairs really well on as well because with like things with Loewe, those that partnership we just talked about. There's their third round now with them that we just talked about, and it just makes sense. She kind of fills in that gap, like you said, to bring all those pieces together. To make it it makes sense. If lack of better words, it all makes sense. And I think I read a comment earlier. They were saying that On is literally one collaboration away from being talked about with the New Balances, Sauconys, and everybody else. And I'm like, I can see that because a lot of their things are a little bit like some of their collaborations are a little pricey right now because they're going for the higher fashion side, the higher end market. But yeah, I think they're one collaboration with Bodega, one collaboration with Concepts, or whoever may be away from being, we're solidified in the sneakerhead space too.
Yeah, I think they're pretty close. I mean, I think, the walk goods that you talked about in a recent episode are really clean. I'm still not sold on like the look of the midsole as much as other people may be. But I think, like you said, that's also, it'll just take somebody coming in and breaking that up. And now all of a sudden you'll have like a very like interesting collab where they let go of a little bit of that. I don't need it to be completely gone, but like it's evolved in so many different ways over the years, but none of them have really hit right for me.
Yeah.
But I think it's also one of those things where like both you and Robbie, once you guys put them on feet, you're like, you need to put these on,
Yeah.
And as I said in my aging like a fine wine years, I'm definitely looking for more comfortable shoes than I am more classics or nostalgia.
For sure.
Also should say for those listening, Loewe is spelled Loewe.
Loewe.
I don't know if that's how, I think that's how you say it, but like I thought about that the last time Robbie brought it up because people are probably like, I don't even know what that is,
Yeah, well, it's funny is when we talked about that. I looked at like 4 videos before we talked about that. Not this partnership, but the one before that. I was like, we're gonna say this right because I'm not gonna come out here looking goofy saying Loewe. And every time I looked at it, everyone said Loewe, and I guess it's a Spanish brand if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
Out of like Spain. So I was like, oh, okay, well now it makes sense. I'm not gonna come out here looking like a goofball. Okay.
Yeah. So there are 2 other topics that I wanted to get into, kind of tangential to the On running or on. I always say On running because saying on doesn't feel like it's enough for some reason,
Describe the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, because it was like On running for the longest time. And then obviously they're making a lot of different shoes and they're not just a running shoe brand. But I saw that Hoka opened their first flagship store in New York City on Fifth Ave this week.
Cool.
Or it's opening this week. And that's another brand that I think without the collaborations, there have been some Hoka collabs that have been pretty dope, but like they are almost running in parallel with this, like they're kind of like older generation comfort, or they are like the all black, all gray, all white, like young and hip, like willing to spend more on a single pair of shoes and maybe have less shoes in the collection. And I just think it's a really interesting it's really interesting to see both of them, kind of announcing these or, these big things happening for both the brands, because we typically don't talk about, Robbie has talked about On much longer than I have, but, I think Hoka is one of those brands where on the running side, they've been known well past the days of On coming onto the scene. But it kind of speaks to like where we're at with sneakers right now, right? And it's interesting that they would open such a, it's actually crazy to me that they haven't opened a flagship store in New York, but it's also, it seems like these kind of younger companies are a little bit more calculated than, the typical, oh, we're a big company, we have to open in New York, we have to open in LA, we have to open in, Tokyo, London, etc.
All the big cities.
Yeah.
I think they're probably like they did it smart because I don't know if On has a flagship location. I haven't seen a physical On store anywhere. I could be completely wrong. If there is one, guys, let me know in the comments. I'd love to see it. But with On, Hoka, I feel like what they did was they made this huge online presence, and with what minimal overhead besides the factories they're using, you get flushed with cash. Now this is like a fun project at this point. It's not a headache. It's like, hey, now I've made my money. I'm in the black. I can go ahead and open this flagship store in one of the running capitals of the world, and it's a fun event. It's not like, okay, how are we gonna keep the lights on? Because think about how often we go up and you see, oh, this Nike store closed, this Adidas store closed. Not saying that they're strapped for cash or anything, but their game was how many places can we get people can see us? Because it was the old school way. How many buildings can we get? And now they've seen that, hey, I don't need that. Now they're all backtracking and we can do everything online. And what's really cool about On and Hoka is that they didn't come for you and me first. They went for the athletic. Well, we're athletic, but you know what I mean? They went for the pure little runner.
Yep.
But they also went for the, again, I can't figure out the way to say this. I don't want to say it's not a single person, but it's almost like the higher income athleisure wearer. We can put that whatever box we want to, but you know what I mean. It's like, again, that person you walk into a Whole Foods or getting whatever. That's the people you see wearing Hokas and On, which it's a brilliant plan. Let's get the money first, then let's go have fun. Now we can go ahead and have those collaborations, bring the younger people in. We already got the technical runner, and that was a given. But now we're just getting this cash in from these because once people buy either one of those brands or both, they're religious to those shoes now. Like they will keep buying, which is amazing to have that kind of customer base. And then now people like me, I haven't owned a Hoka yet. I have On, I love On. Hoka, I finally kind of started looking into them. There's a Clifton 9 suede I saw, like this hairy suede.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy crap, I've not seen this before. Yeah. And so now I'm drawn in. So it's one of those cool things. Like I feel like the business plan was perfect on who they reached out to first because we're fickle. Sneakerheads are fickle. We love you one day and like, kick rocks the next day. So they made the perfect plan, and it's shown to be outshining and maybe outlasting some of the other things out there.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that's kind of the bigger topic at hand is like, you know, you see a lot of people saying they're retiring from sneakers, they're quitting the game, all these things. Mm-hmm. And, you know, people have said that for forever, right? Like I know people that were big in the sneaker world in the mid 2000s on the message boards in the early days of even like, you know, early days of Twitter or Facebook, et cetera. But then kind of just like gave up on it and did other things with their lives. Yep. And you know, nothing against that. Everybody's got to do what they got to do. And but it's really interesting to see kind of the cyclical nature of that because you know, there's plenty of, you know, sneaker influencer creator types that have sold their collections and then started over or sold their collections and limited it to a certain number. And that's a big, like, it's an interesting topic. That's why we keep seeing people do it. Right. Yeah. I can relate. I have, you know, 1,000, 1,500 plus shoes between like home and storage units. And, you know, like I can't possibly wear them all. You know, I am in a place where I'm trying to tell those stories. And one of the things that's a goal for the future for me is to like really get into the stories behind the shoes and why I even have them. Because most of the places that I worked for, you know, I was being laid off a few months back. I was looking at, you know, kind of the places that I'd worked for in the past. So I'd worked for, you know, let's see, I started at Nice Kicks. You know, most of my stuff from Nice Kicks is no longer findable on the web. If it is, like, my name is not usually attached to it because they've updated their, you know, CMS systems and it just didn't carry over. Same thing for Soul Collector back in the day, back when the magazine was still around. You know, like I've got all these Soul Collector shoes up here on my wall because that was one of my favorite experiences in the sneaker world, is just like, being a part of the magazine and all that, and, you know, getting to start the East Bay blog. I mean, I just worked so hard to put that together back then with those teams, and all of it's gone. You know, like, you can't find any of those because they shut down the company, they shut down the site. Obviously, that's tough. I helped Foot Locker build Sneakerpedia, and that's no longer around. So, like, did all of the content, you know, not all of it, but, like, I would say, like, you know, 70, 80, 90% of the content around Sneakerpedia for the 2 years that it ran, and it's all gone. And then Complex for a few years, and, you know, most of my stuff doesn't have my name attached to it now, you know, and I noticed it because I randomly was on Facebook, which I'm not really on there very much at all. But it was like, I was going through the memories thing, and I was like, oh shit, I wrote about this. And I clicked on it. And of course it just sends me to, you know, a nothing page. So the Soul Collector site is gone. The Soul Collector forums are gone. You know, like, crazy. All these places that I put my heart and soul into to build an audience for people and for brands is no longer there. And I'm kind of in this place where seeing all this change happen on, you know, the shift in the consumerism, and saying, like, people wanting to get rid of it or downsize, or I'm not paying attention to sneakers anymore. It's tough because, as somebody who, you know, spent my, you know, 15 plus years of my life doing this stuff, it makes me wonder, like, do I want to keep continuing in this space, especially looking at work? And, you know, obviously doing the show with you guys, I enjoy. And, like, I love doing this stuff. I love talking to people. So this is not going to go away, but it's really interesting, because even I think of, like, the way I kind of have to, you know, a lot of people in the Discord even don't even know what I've done. They just ended up here somehow. And it's like, I'll be talking to somebody, and they'll be like, oh, you worked for that company, or you did that. It's like, yeah, I've done this for a really long time. And I'm not the type to, like, talk about what I do. And I'm trying to make a point to do better about that, which is why I'm, like, revisiting all these things. But it also is, like, this new changing of the guards, so to speak. Yeah. In, like, a, you know, logo on the side of the shoe. The same, there's a lot of people in the footwear industry that have just bounced around from company to company. And when one company starts to dip, then they go to somebody else that's on the rise and help make that a better place. And, you know, like, nothing wrong with that. You know, that's normal work in America, in my opinion. But also, at the same time, the last thing I want to talk about is Skechers just opened the New York Stock Exchange for their 25th anniversary. And Skechers is another one of those brands that has been ridiculed in the sneakerhead community for years. And up until the basketball shoes came out, with a few exceptions, there's been a few times where things have bubbled up. But most of the time, sneakerheads are making fun of Kim Kardashian shape-ups, or Joe Montana in a
Tony
commercial,
Romo,
or
slip-ons.
Tony Romo. Yeah, exactly. And what I don't know that people realize is that Skechers, 25 years old, if you roll that back to 1999 or whatever, is just this. Skechers was started by the guys from LA Gear, which went out of business or sold in the mid to late 90s. So the people that are behind this are still passionate about footwear. They just figured out a better way to do it for themselves. And obviously Skechers is exponentially the size of the company that LA Gear was prior to it. Even though LA Gear was nothing to laugh at in the 90s. It was serious. Like, they had plenty of people
at the light-up, man. When I was a kid, at the light-up.
Yeah, man. And people in the league played in them. They had deals with a bunch of people, you know, so I'm, like, seeing, like, this in a really, this whole shift and all these dynamics changing in a very, like, wow, I've been through a lot of this on both sides. And now it's like, this is about to be a new fresh start for these three brands. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if one of the big brands, I'm not going to put it out in the universe and jinx anybody, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of the big brands is gone in 10 years or very close to it, or gets scooped up by a, you know, like a Walmart or something like that. And you see some sneakerhead brand just being sold at Walmart, because we kind of seen it even with Supreme recently, you know, like they got bought up by authentic brands and they've kind of lost the oomph that they had, the luster. And it's not that authentic brands doesn't do good stuff. Like they obviously have, you know, or it's not authentic. It's VF. Sorry, I'm getting my conglomerates mixed up.
Because they were
here.
owned by the same people that own Louis Vuitton, right?
VF owns Vans. They own
Timberlands.
Timberland.
Yes, Timberlands. Yes, yeah.
The North Face.
Yeah.
I mean, they just own a ton of things. And
think of it, they own it.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's either authentic. Authentic is who owns Reebok.
Yeah.
But authentic, you know, VF Corp. There's a couple others, but like most of these companies are big conglomerates, right? Like we've talked about it recently. JD Sports and Foot Locker basically own
everything,
you know, 60-70% of the retail side of footwear. So I don't know, man, it's just an interesting thing. And I wouldn't think that we'd ever be really talking much about Skechers, but I thought it was important to bring that up because I don't know if everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm about to turn 45 and I'm about to start wearing Skechers. It's not like that.
Yes.
But I mean, if they do it right and they get the right athletes and they find success with their performance on the performance side of things, in a lot of ways, and I guess this would be a question for you and everybody listening, if they get it right on the performance side with basketball specifically, can they kind of nullify some of the mistakes they made on the way to get there? Will people, you know, wear a Skechers basketball shoe? Will they be able to create enough demand where we start seeing it pop up in, you know, on sneaker blogs or in sneaker Instagram accounts or whatever, or in the streets?
It's a yes and a no to that. So the yes is I think they can because it's actually proven. If people dig a little deeper than just the casual Skechers lines that they see, Skechers is actually really big in performance running, like marathon running, like serious athletes run in those Skechers performance shoes. If you haven't checked them out, yes, they've had their flaws of just like, you know, basically copy and pasting what a lot of other brands are doing. They've clearly gotten in their hand and wrist slap for that, but I think they're on their way to do the right thing. It won't be this generation, me and you. It would probably be like my kids' generation who would be the ones to put Skechers on the map. Not these teenagers now, not these young adults now, but people who are not even like maybe 10 and younger. If they can figure it out by the time they're like teenagers, like in the next 5 years or, you know, whatever that may be. Yeah. But they have to really figure it out. They can't just, you know, they can't phone it in. They really have to go in there, get some good designers out there, get some fresh eyes on the product. Because the thing is, you can look at a Skechers and tell it's a Skechers just by the design language on it. If they're able to get away from that and really take maybe, I'm not saying get rid of all your DNA because that's what made you, that's what made people buy you, but you might want to take a hard left for a division, basketball specifically, because you get the right designer out there, you can have the success of, you know, who's that? Aaron Cooper just dropped his basketball shoe.
Mm-hmm.
People are loving that shoe. The first shoe he's dropped his own design, his own company. And if they were able to say, "Hey, you want to come help us out?" or, you know, get somebody with some real experience, like in not making just a performance shoe, but a performance shoe that looks good, I make a couple calls. I'm sure you offer enough money to somebody out there. They'll, like say, they always move around. They go to the next best thing, which is good. Hey, good for them. Take advantage of a situation.
Yep.
They offer the right money, the right situation for somebody. I think they can make it happen, even for the younger kids coming up, and help them. Those kids will help them put it on the map.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think it's a really interesting opportunity, and you know, I think it's also, like you said, Aaron Cooper's. What is it?
EQZ? Is it EQL?
Equals?
I think
something like that.
Don't quote us on that. I cannot remember. I'm not looking at it right now.
I mean, just check out, you know, any of the kind of YouTube, like Nightwing has posted about it. Yeah, I know Jacques had posted about a pair.
Sneaker Tech Talk.
Yeah, any of the performance review side, like they've been really highly regarded. I think they look really dope. I would love to play them. Yeah, but I think, you know, it's the reason you see someone like him, you know, and honestly, like we should try to get him on the show at some point. But like, it's the reason why someone who's got a history in the sneaker game design footwear is trying to make their own thing happen. And I think, and I don't know if he just did the design or if it's his company altogether, but like either way, like there's such a huge opportunity. That's why you see Anta spending so much money with Kyrie, like that's why you see, like all these kind of like, they're not off the radar, but they are just like out of the cool, like top 5 or whatever, given signature shoes, what's the dude for the Lakers that's got
Austin Reeves has a signature shoe.
Yeah, like that shoe to me
and
is
apparently
like super
it's
dope.
Fantastic to play in from what I've seen.
Yeah, but it makes you wonder, like, kind of looping back to where we started all this, with someone like Zendaya, who has the reach that is exponential to an Austin Reeves, to even to a Kyrie, right? Kyrie is obviously well known, but
not Zendaya known.
Yeah, well, and I think, he's at a disadvantage because he had to deal with Nike for so long.
Yeah.
So he kind of gets shunned by a lot of the sneakerhead community. And then obviously his political stuff probably hurt him a little bit. But if you just take all that away, like, I think the shoe looks really dope. And there's no reason that people wouldn't want to check it out if Anta can get it to people. And I think the same thing could be said for, most of especially the Chinese brands, where we're seeing shoes come up and, really like have a really cool aesthetic to them. Like they look
Way of Wades.
Yeah, Way of Wades are awesome,
they're
man.
Everywhere now. Well, I mean, on players' feet, I mean, I feel like it's still impossible to buy those suckers here, but
yeah, especially if it's a size 13. That's the worst part about the Chinese brands. It's really difficult to get my size in them. But I've scored a couple of Way of Wades. I have a couple of pairs that I've only worn one of the 2 or 3 that I have.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's interesting. I was surprised to see that. I mean, she is not the first person that I think of when it comes to like, wearing cool sneakers, but she's definitely one of those people that I think the Samba buyer, the Panda Dunk buyer, the Beat Air Force One buyer is going to look at and like follow, right? They're going to see On and they're going to think, whoa, Zendaya is actually like probably getting paid off of this. I'm not just dressing to look like her or whatever. I'm actually going to support her in, making some money. And that to me is like also what's really cool about like the younger generations that are out there right now, that, they're more conscious in the way that they spend. And I relate to that, like if you've heard me yap about it, I'm big into cars, and I literally bought every skate brand that supported any of the guys that I wanted to support racing. Like I used to buy all those brands, and brands that are like long gone, like Daewon Song had Maddox clothing, and like they sponsored one of the like Hondas back in the 90s and early 2000s. And I was like, okay, cool. I fuck with this brand because I fuck with these guys, And like, obviously Daewon is a big, person. I forget who his partner is in that building or in that business, but forgive me because I'm just drawing a blank. But it's cool to see it nonetheless from the next generation, because there's so much there just seems to be so much animosity. And I think like probably because like TikTok and social just fuels it with dumping fuel on the fire. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited about it, man. I think it's going to create new opportunities to like for me, hopefully, to work with some of these people, some of these brands, and kind of like give them the heads up of like how things have worked and how they can differentiate themselves from the, brands that are out there now. And yeah, man, it's such an interesting, I don't know. I was kind of shocked to see it, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a weird time in sneakers in a sense of what we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing the same things over and over again. But I mean, I like it because there's so much, everyone talks about parity in sport. I think there's a bit of parity in the sneaker industry now because, again, Nike, Jordan, Adidas, they're going to make their money. They're printing money. No matter if they're having to put Yeezys on the website for half price, guess what? They know exactly what they're doing. They know they're going to clean the house because people are finally going to be able to get them, and they don't care. They want the shoe. That's cool.
Yep.
Do your thing. But when now I'm sitting here looking to buy a shoe, I can't be like, oh, cool, there's a Jordan. Of course, I'm like, oh, dope, I want that one. But then I get sidetracked by, oh, the Roger 2 is coming out, or like that Hoka I was telling you about, or I'm looking at Mizuno, their Wave Rider Beta. There's so many. Saucony always distracted me with all of like the cool stuff they're putting out. So it's like I'm always in 20 different places now, which is now that's how it should be. It's not just, oh, okay, I'm going to Nike store, buy this.
Yep.
It is so much. Like the competition is great. Again, and not everyone has that same big piece of the pie as the big two or big three, or whatever you want to call them. But it is. They're making themselves aware. They definitely have, I guess, what they call it, a puncher's chance in having just the next big hit, because everyone's just one design, one colorway away from being the hot topic for at least a quarter, at least a year. Because once you do something great, people are locked in now. Because even though it sucks 99% of the time, social media will make sure you're in front of them. Like, Saucony, for example, putting out hit after hit, in my opinion, of their GRs. But once that J-Tip pair came out, all eyes are on it. And now you saw not only the J-Tips pair, but people were locked in for things like the Crystal Cave, Omni 9s. Like, once the eyes are on you, you have to keep producing. And like Saucony kept doing it. On has kept doing it. Hoka's clearly kept doing it. So as long as they keep doing what they're supposed to do, they have a fighter's chance of overtaking some of this market share.
100% agree, man. I mean, I think that's a perfect place to wrap. I think that's also like a great question. Like, who's it going to be? Who's the next up and coming brand that's gonna make waves? Let us know what you think. We'll drop it in the Discord. We can have a little conversation around it with the rest of the community. And we appreciate y'all rocking with us, listening wherever you are. If you haven't left us a review, today would be a great day to do that. We're on the edge of hitting 200 on Apple, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, which would be super dope to do. No real reason other than I just want to say that we did. So if you're still listening, I'm talking to you. Help us out. Leave us a review. We appreciate y'all. Make sure you connect with Mike.
Yeah, of course, you can always find me here on Sneaker History, whether it be Discord, Instagram, wherever. You can find me there. Find me Instagram and Twitter at MadWatcher789. And of course, you can find me on YouTube at Mike Guillory.
You can find me at Nick Engvall on all the platforms. And more importantly, follow at Sneaker History everywhere. We'll catch you in the next episode. We appreciate y'all. Peace.
See ya.
Hey, Nick here again. Before you take off, I want to thank you for listening to the Sneaker History Podcast. Be sure to hop into our Discord to answer this episode's The Last Shot question and get to know our community of sneaker enthusiasts. If you'd like more insights on the trending topics in the sneaker world, I've also recently started a newsletter to share my knowledge from nearly 2 decades of experience working in the footwear industry. You can find the link to that below or go to sneakerhistory.com/newsletter. And last but not least, tell someone you like their kicks today. You never know how far a simple compliment can take you, and we all know how good it feels to be on the receiving end of some appreciation. Thank you for all the support, and we will catch you on the next episode. Peace.